So hi guys, I just wanted to take a moment and share with you a few things you can do in your yoga practice if you're working with a knee replacement. I had a student that came to our studio, and I remember when we met, wonderful lady artist, and I remember she had a knee replacement and hadn't really moved so much other than work to because of the knee replacement. Now in work, she had to do things like climb ladders, work with, a lot of big kind of artistic kind of props that supported her artwork. But doing yoga was something that was like not thought of. So she started to come into class, and I remember this revelation that was just so amazing. It was like, wow, I can do yoga. Now, everybody is individual, and this particular student, like, we found that there were certain things she had to avoid, and other than that, she pretty much could do the whole practice. And I know each person is going to be individual, depending on what is happening with your body, but so just based on experience with this student in particular, I just want to kind of share with you a little bit about what helped with working together with her practice. A couple of things: avoiding direct pressure. Right, you're now bionic. You're going to set off metal detectors when you go through the airport. If you go through the airport anytime soon, so no, avoiding pressure. Another thing is to be aware of what is okay and what is not okay. In general, with knee issues, deep folding of the knee can be a real challenge. So, depending on what's happening in your body, how your knee health was working up to the knee replacement. You had the knee replacement for a reason, right? So if the health of the knee was compromised before, and you did a lot of rehab, and you had a good full range of motion, and you just ended up having to get the replacement done, you might be in a different place than if you hadn't really rehabbed the knee, right? So again, that's going to be very individual. But in general, being aware of what's okay and what's not okay with your own body with regard to deep knee flexion, folding at the knee. And then just taking care of knee health in general. So one thing that's kind of a useful tip and trick is to work to kind of just check the range of motion and strengthen the muscles around the knee very, very simply. And so we'll do that. And then we'll also do a flow with no half dogs in it. And then a stretch that I like to call the Christine. Okay? So number one, we're going to take a yoga blanket and roll it up tightly. You can use a towel instead, or a foam roller if you have one. And we're just going to start by having the kneecaps facing straight up toward the ceiling. I like to say chiclets to the sky. You're going to start by pushing down first to then straighten the leg. And that last 5 degrees of straightening, you're going to be able to engage the lower quads. In particular, we're aiming for the vastus medialis, the lower quad on the middle part, right? And you can tap that muscle to try to wake it up a little bit. As you press down, right, you're kind of efforting for the hip flexors to not take over, right? There's a muscle that crosses both the hip and the knee, and we're kind of trying to just focus on the knee, the ones just above the knee. So sometimes if you lie back, that's another way you can kind of have this hip muscle stay out of the picture. Still stay chiclets to the sky. Think of the kneecap, visualize that, and relax the foot as you straighten and squeeze that leg straight. And you can do a good number of those. Okay? And then you can do the same thing on the second side to kind of work for that rehab. I'll do a longer video on that specific knee strength kind of support at another point. The other thing I wanted to do was just kind of move through how you do a flow without the half dog in it. So we do a general warm-up, a lot of times the grasshopper vinyasa, and then the sun salutation vinyasa. So with the sun salutation vinyasa, we come up, we bring the arms down and overhead, we reach, and all of this may be okay, right? And then we step back into lunge, right? And then we come back into plank pose. We lower down, come into baby cobra, and normally here we would go into half dog. So the only difference is instead of going to half dog, you're going to come into regular downward dog. From half dog, we come to plank, and then we come to downward dog. Right? So all you did was replace the half dog with the downward dog. Right? When we come out of this, we come into the lunge. Now, all of this might take some time to work your way into being able to do full lunge. You might have to do kind of baby steps and step, 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 one foot at a time to come into it. But you could kind of, you know, again, see where you are in your practice. And then as we come out of it, we come into chair, and then we stand into Tadasana. So really the only thing we changed there was instead of doing the half dog, we did full down facing dog. And the last thing I wanted to share with you was a lot of times when we do hip openers, again, we said we don't want to we want to really watch, be aware of what's okay with that deep knee fold. So we're going to do a hip opener that is a pigeon variation. So we're going to stack the legs, take the top foot flat, and then hand to ankle, bring the foot across the thigh. So it's a little more open, the fold of the knee, and you're not putting any pressure on the knee. Right, we're going to come down under our forearm, lengthen the spine, turn the collarbones to face the shin bone, and then top arm around the shin bone. Lengthen the spine, and you're going to bring your torso toward your shin bone. We're going for the stretch of the hip. And again, this should be more mild on the knee. Now, if it's not comfortable to do this one, then you're going to, you know, the figure four stretch is another good one. But let's do the other side first. So we're going to put the foot flat, come across, right? Forearm down. You're leaning a little bit forward, and you're hugging that shin bone, lengthening the spine. You're tilting at the pelvis here. Right now, if I had a wheel on either side of my pelvis, I'm trying to turn the pelvic wheels into forward motion. I'm trying to bring my belly button toward this kind of open space of a triangle here as I reach my collarbones toward my shin bone. Right? The more I stick my tush out, the more I feel the stretch in the hip. Okay? And since we mentioned the figure four stretch, if that one we just did, and I'll just let you know that one we just did, for now, I'm calling it the Christine, right? Because when we had a anatomy class, anatomy studies for yoga teachers, there was we were talking about the, you know, the mechanics that make things work in a certain way. And one of the students, and I believe her name was Christine, came up with that stretch. And we were like, oh, well, what do we call it? You know, and so let's call it the Christine. So I'm calling that the Christine. And thank you, Christine, for sharing that stretch with us. Right? And the other thing, if it's not comfortable to do that one, is you can do the hip stretch in this way, the figure four stretch. Right? So this is a couple of things that can be helpful. Right? If you have, you know, had a knee replacement, and you know, you may or may not, you know, have done yoga in the past, and if you have, then that'll be easier kind of flow back into it, and then you got to figure out, well, what do I need to adjust? So those are just a couple of things that are hopefully going to be helpful if you've had a knee replacement and you want to come back to your yoga practice. If you're doing, you know, the Zenyasa yoga practice, that's where the sun salutation is coming from that I just did there. Hope that helps, guys. If you enjoyed this video, or if you feel like you might know someone who it can help, please feel free to share it. If you want to subscribe and hit the like button, then that would be great, and we can kind of continue to learn and grow together. Thanks so much, guys. Mwah.